Live from the Jersey Shore to the world. Get up, get out, do something. Wake up with Jeremy Grunin. Take the show wherever you go. Download the free Radio Pup app for your smartphone or tablet. Join the conversation. 732-505-1160. News Talk Radio WOBM AM 1160 and 1310. Listen online at WOBMAM.com.
And welcome back. It is 6:33. It is 24 degrees. It is heading all the way up to 28 here at WOBM AM 1160 and 1310 News Talk Radio and streaming live on the Radio Pup app. Joining us in studio, we have Steve Willis from Hope Sheds Light. Steve, welcome.
Good morning, Jeremy.
Thank you so much for joining us this morning. So, Steve, why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about Hope Sheds Light, what you guys are all about, and what you're here to kind of share with us today?
Sure, thank you. Hope Sheds Light is a nonprofit that's dedicated to raising awareness about the disease of addiction by providing education and providing resources and instilling hope to support a healthier community. Hope Sheds Light was the original idea of Ron Rosetto, my partner. And between Ron and myself and Arvo Prima, what we originally did was to create a website which lists inpatients and outpatients and support groups and grief counselors. And why did we do that? Because all those years ago, about 20 years ago, when I started dealing with this disease of addiction with my son, I had no idea what was out there, what kind of resources were available, and where to turn. And Ron didn't either. So he said to me when he called, he said, Steve, let's do that so we can at least direct the community about what about the kind of resources are out there, and perhaps they can make phone calls. And I said, that's a good idea. And what Arvo's idea was, too, along with ours, was to talk about the disease of addiction. And that's what we do on the website. I think we do a very good job. It's a brain disease. It's a chronic, progressive, and fatal disease if left unaddressed. And it's a family disease. And so what we've done is to not only explain it, but we've also listed behavioral signs that parents and grandparents and siblings can look at tied to different drugs, so they can see if there's a problem in their family. And we also have a helpline, and that's important to me because when people try to call programs, there are times, maybe many times, when the programs themselves won't answer, and people need help right away. So when they call, our helpline, it's going to be answered. We're going to return the phone calls, and then we have the blessing of being able to meet with the individual and family members. If many times parents will call, moms will call and say, I have no idea what to do with my child. So we invite them all in, because it's important that not only we help move the individual into treatment, but help the family members recover, because everybody gets sick. It's a crazy disease, but I got really sick, and my journey with addiction started 20 years ago. It started with my son Mark. The first 12 years of our life together were wonderful. At age 13, it's like a switch was thrown and all hell broke loose in my house. It was all of a sudden massive quantities of drugs. He was breaking up my house in fits of anger. He was stealing, running away. And the short version is that nothing I did as a dad seemed to work at all. It was the most humbling experience of my life because as a man and as an attorney, I fixed things, or so I thought.
Right.
And when I couldn't fix him, I did something perhaps that was unusual back then, but I ended up pressing charges against my son because I realized that I couldn't affect change, and I loved him dearly and needed to find something or somebody that could affect change. And that was the legal system. I figured if he didn't like a consequence that the legal system would impose, and why would they impose it? Because he was so sick, he needed medical help, but I couldn't make him go. So with the help of the legal system, a choice was given, either jail or treatment, and he certainly didn't like jail. So as long as he was structured by the legal system, he did well. But unfortunately, in his mid-20s, my son Mark, did not really think that he had much of a problem still, despite all of our experiences. And he was using regularly and got sicker and sicker, and there was no legal system to help structure. So he ended up overdosing 4 times that I know of and survived it, which was amazing. And then 4 years ago, he actually hung himself, and that'll make you cry. Really clinically dead, kept alive by machines, and the doctors at that point said that he wasn't going to survive the day, they didn't think, and if he did, they said he'd be severely diminished. So my prayer was to, God, just make him whole or take him home, was the prayer. And I really watched a miracle, at least according to the doctors and myself, happen, because when the machines were taken off of him, he survived it. And I brought him to my house with a therapist friend, and I said, Mark, you're apparently hard to kill. Like, how many experiences do you need before you say enough is enough? And that's really what's required for an addict to recover. They need to want to, not because parents want them to, but because they're sick and tired of being sick. Though my son did not die from an overdose. He actually developed a seizure disorder, though, and what really killed him, I share with folks, is that he kept saying, I got this, Dad. I can do this by myself. And nobody recovers alone, we've learned. It takes a fellowship. So he ended up actually not taking seizure medicine regularly and was fishing a couple of years ago early one morning and had a seizure and rolled into the water and drowned. And that's what I mean, we're losing our children to this disease. And people die from overdoses. We read about that every day. But they also die from collateral damage, too, whether it's through seizures, whether it's through drowning, it can be a number of things. It's a sickness. It requires medical and psychological help, and even for the family members, too. And here at Hope Sheds Light, we know how to help people recover, and that's our joy. We're really focused on the whole family.
Wow. Well, first of all, thank you so much for sharing that with all of us, Steve. I know that I know it's painful for you every time you share it, but I also know that through sharing our own personal experiences, the hope for you, for Arvo, for Ron, is that others won't have to share that story.
That's exactly right.
And so that's the beautiful thing, and that's why it was so I was so happy to be able to bring you here to be able to talk about this. And when you guys first started talking about forming Hope Sheds Light, I think that at the time here in our county, we hadn't taken step one, which is we hadn't admitted we had a problem. Right. There was no drug problem here. There, just like there is no homeless problem, just like there's a lot of problems that we don't have here at the Jersey Shore. And you guys said, no, we have a problem. And now over these last 2 years, we've seen everybody join into the fight and understand that, yes, we do have a problem. And I think it's a result of folks like you and what you guys have done with Hope Sheds Light that has really, we say this a lot, which is really shine the heat and light on an important topic, because turning a blind eye to it doesn't work. That's not how you solve this problem.
It doesn't work, and I appreciate that. For years I've been talking about this and felt kind of like I was alone, and it's such a joy to see all parts of the community coming together, between law enforcement and the medical community, and
right.
Clergy and school. There's this stigma that's been attached to this disease for years, and for some it'll still be there. But our joy is to see more and more of the community come out. I mean, our last celebration of Hope Walk this past summer, we had over 1,000 people there.
Right.
So because we're showing what recovery looks like.
So we've come a long way. There have been, we now have a governor who kind of makes it the keynote of his State of the State speech. But obviously we have a long, long, long way to go. So if you could pick up the Wake Up with Jeremy Grunin magic wand, which we seem to bring out every time we have a discussion, what would you like to see our county, our state, our country do to fight this disease more effectively? What's the one thing that you would like to, if you could change, what would you like to see?
Well, I'd like to see priorities change, and I think that the governor, if what he's proposing actually takes place, if it's approved by our Senate, more money needs to be spent here. We need more detoxes. We need more inpatient programs. We need priorities to change so that those things can happen. We need reimbursements rates to go up to the providers. We need more residential programs that deal with both mental health and substance abuse, co-occurring programs, because we need to treat the whole person, and we're not necessarily doing that simply with substance abuse programs. We do have the outpatients that deal mostly with mental health, so there just needs to be more programs altogether.
Okay, great. So we have to take a quick break, but when we come back, we're going to talk about some of the events or some of the ways that Hope Sheds Light is reaching out into the community, and we can talk more with Steve Willis. You can join the conversation, 732-505-1160. Be right back.
Stay tuned for Preferred Company with Joel Markell and Marianne Levy at 8. Wake Up with Jeremy Grunin continues next. News Talk Radio WOBM AM 1160 and 1310.
Welcome back. Wake Up with Jeremy Grunin, 732-505-1160 to join the conversation with Steve Willis from Hope Sheds Light, talking about drugs and how we are fighting that fight here at the Jersey Shore on WOBM AM 1160 and 1310 News Talk Radio and on your Radio Pup app. So, Steve, talk to me about how you guys are getting out into the community. I know you mentioned your Hope Walk, which the growth has been exponential year over year, and will continue to grow. And I on one hand, I think that's great. On the other hand, it's sad because we in our perfect world, we wouldn't need Hope Sheds Light. We wouldn't need any of this. We would all have licked our problems and we could move on to other things. But that's just not the reality of of the world we live in. So tell our listeners about how you guys are getting out into the community, what kind of things you have on tap, and where we're heading.
Sure. Well, we're very excited. We've just hired an executive director, and that's a testament to our growth. So Debbie will be able to help us get into the community in more areas too. But for these last couple of years, we've been going to any group that wants to hear us speak, between Rotary and the Elks and churches, and we participate in the Prosecutors Forum. So we'll continue to do that in order to spread awareness and hope and love. And that's what Hope Sheds Light is. It's love. But we also this year are going to, it's been great because we've experienced so many people calling and saying, what can we do to help? We want to volunteer. Well, this year we will be very organized about that, and we want to be able to, become recovery coaches. You've heard what St. Barnabas is doing, and it's an idea that's a good one. I've been doing that personally with some colleagues through Hope Sheds Light also, but we're going to have more of that. Not just recovery coaches, for example, or care counselors, we may call them, for the individual, but for the family members, which is, again, so important for their own recovery because everybody gets sick. So we're going to do that so we can, touch the families more. And we are planning an educational series that we'll place on our website, and hope it'll be good enough to bring it into the schools, because we have been into the schools to talk. We need to do more of that. We've begun to scholarship some people in treatment, which has been a blessing with the money that the community has given us, because many of our families do not have the wherewithal or do not have insurance to get into treatment. So that's good. So between the educational series and the care counselors, recovery coaches, that's what we see happening this year. And I'm willing to go. Our colleagues are willing to go to any organization that wants to hear more about what Hope Sheds Light does. And I really encourage anybody that's out there, whether you be an individual or family members, to call us. They can call us at our 800 number, which is 855-350-2790, or they can go right to hopeshedslight.org. There's a wealth of information there, and there are ways to volunteer.
All right. So, Steve Willis, Hope Sheds Light, and we talked about how Hope Sheds Light has gotten out into the community. I can tell you that I have personally heard Steve share his story and talk to our community at local Kiwanis Club, at a Chamber of Commerce. We had Hope Sheds Light at the Chamber of Commerce was honored them as the nonprofit of the year. Mm-hmm. I know you guys have been really getting out everywhere that you can to spread the word and to make sure that you're letting everyone know that you're available to help. And I think that is, look, so again, we talk about here, we started the show talking about Martin Luther King and talking about, when we talk about get up, get out, and do something. Obviously, you could, if you were to look up, do something, make a change in the encyclopedia, if they still had encyclopedias, you'd probably turn right to a picture of Martin Luther King. Okay. But when we talk locally about folks that are making changes or that are working to impact our community in a positive way, yourself, Ron Rosetto, Arvo Prima, you guys have been really the poster boys. Mm-hmm. I don't want to sound, You guys have been the poster children for what that looks like in our community over these last few years, and in all the work you've done with Hope Sheds Light. So I want to thank you for that. And listen, you mentioned what Governor Christie has proposed, and you said to me kind of off air, you said that one of the biggest hurdles has been reimbursements and the money that's available for treatment. Do you see that in a big way at the Jersey Shore? Do you see that there's just, you mentioned a scholarship program. Do you see that there's just a lack of funding to get folks the help they need? Do you run up against that? Do you, are you short? Are you short of funding? I mean, what could we do to help?
Well, yes, we are short of funding. I mean, the insurance companies, will pay what they want to pay.
Right.
I would like to see a determination of medical necessity actually taken away from the insurance companies and given to the medical professionals where I think it belongs.
Okay.
And that would help. But any amount of money that comes in to help us scholarship people would be greatly appreciated, because there's so much need out there. And when insurance doesn't pay, and there are still beds that may be available, we need to get folks in there. So.
Okay. Yeah, and so I think that's a key point that everyone needs to take here is that, look, so you have a great organization. They're doing their part to get the awareness out there. They have put great programs in place. There's hotlines. There is a support system that's in place. But at the end of the day, there's never enough money, unfortunately, to cover all the need. So anything you can do to help out there, or even if you want to volunteer your time to see, how you could pitch in. Steve, what was that number again that folks could call? 1-855
1-855-350-2790.
Right. Or you can Google Hope Sheds Light. Go to hopeshedslight.org, is it?
That's correct.
Hopeshedslight.org. They just hired a brand new executive director, and this is how much this. I want you to understand. This has all happened in like the last 2 years. We went from 0 Hope Sheds Light, 0 organizations supporting this disease at the Jersey Shore. Now we have. By the way, most of you have never created a 501c3 out there, a nonprofit organization. That's like an unbelievable amount of work just to begin with. Like that, there are groups that throw in the towel because they don't want to go through that work, right? So these guys created a 501c3, right? They recruited folks like our prosecutor, Joe Coronado, who's on your board now, right?
Yes.
Yes. So you have they created a board, a high-powered board of folks that can actually be change agents in our community, right? They created a website, they raised money, they've created events, and now the organization is so sustainable that they've hired an executive director. Okay, so this is all in the span of 2 years. So again, when you're looking at how you can get out and make a difference, we're just talking about going and volunteering somewhere, right? We're talking about giving a couple dollars that you otherwise would have spent on maybe getting your buying a new pair of pants, okay, or a new pair of shoes or a new handbag, okay? These guys went out and they created an organization that is making an impact in the community, and on behalf of certainly on behalf of my foundation, of the Jane Linda Grunin Foundation, we thank you, Steve and Arvo and Ron, for all you guys have done in this community, and thank you so much, and thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Well, Jeremy, thank you. It's a privilege to serve.
All right.
Thank you.
And again, Steve Willis, Hope Sheds Light, just an incredible story, and it should be motivation for everyone to get up, get out, and do something. On the other side of the break, we will have Jim Gillick from the Boy Scouts. See you in a few.
The news never stops at WOBMAM.com. Get the latest from WOBM News, the Town Square, New Jersey News Network, and Fox News Radio. Wake up with Jeremy Grunin. News Talk Radio, WOBMAM 1160 and 1310.